What is the masculinity so fragile hashtag, and why is it taking it off on Twitter? And there's even some backlash. So first of all, the masculinity so fragile hashtag is currently trending because it's a hashtag that seems to have been created to highlight the downsides and pitfalls of toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity being that men are socially conditioned, the social construct to be a man, and then they can't feel, they can't express their feelings. If they do, that they are perceived as effeminate or gay. And that's what toxic masculinity is. And of course that is conditioned by our society, maybe your parents, maybe the school, the culture, whatever it may be. So this hashtag, they hope that they can hopefully showcase what that is and then allow men and women to highlight that through the hashtag. So let me give you some examples because there was some backlash. So first, people were trying to promote it, hashtag masculinity so fragile, that some men feel that to prove themselves as real men, they have to be disrespectful to women and demean them. Because again, they're afraid if they were to express their true feelings and be kind, that somehow they're not acting like a man. So for example, hashtag masculinity so fragile, the color pink is now gay. Hashtag masculinity so fragile, man can't do anything unless we bless it with a man word, like man bun, guy liner, man bag. And people are trying to help men to showcase their softer side without having to be bashed or told that they are effeminate. But there is a backlash where men are saying that it's an attack on them. And one man even went so far to tweet, I'd like to see a woman last 3 rounds in a ring with me and tell me how fragile I am. That was his tweet in so many words because I don't have it in front of me.
I think you just told her how fragile you were because you're like, oh, don't challenge me.
Case in point, right?
You just said you're hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
Case in point that they feel like that they can't embrace their softer side, and if they face rejection, even though this isn't rejection, that they have to somehow come out with their hands up. Thoughts, 5 words or less.
Masculinity so fragile, so fetch.
Ooh.
Man, oh man.
Feeling this hashtag. I think this hashtag is a great hashtag. Somehow it has been misconstrued.
Manipulated?
Yes, manipulated. I'm seeing more negative tweets about it than the positive ones. When again, it's just trying to help men being able to showcase their feelings and talk about their feelings and not be coined as effeminate or gay for just being themselves.
Yeah, well, sometimes yourself is like incapable of processing emotion. Like that is a self.
Why are you making us feel these things?
Don't think of men as being too complicated. Just think of very simple. Like when guys hang out, literally I spent hours with my friends taking a beer can, putting it on a stick, picking up a rock, going back and seeing which of us can hit the beer can first. And that's a masculine thing. And that's a masculine thing that's okay. Sometimes that dynamic carries over into, instead of throwing rocks at a beer can to see who can do it the best, it bleeds into like belittling women and making them feel the worst. That's not okay.
Right.
I think there's an easier way to just kind of redirect.
But do you think that also you're conditioned that way, though? You say that men aren't complicated, it's very simple, it's A, B, C, D, or E, but do you think it's because from a very early age, whoever is around you are conditioning you to be like, oh, Brett's fine, Brett doesn't need to do this. Oh, Sam, let me talk to you. How are you feeling? Well, let's do this, let's do that.
There are only a few times in life when it's acceptable for a man to use that phrase. When he's drunk or when he's in big trouble and it's the only way out.
And that you're pigeonholed into being conditioned to be that way.
For sure. Like I was like, throw the ball. Like my dad played football. So it was like, yeah, throw the ball. And I get that. And whether it's like, the conditioning is definitely there. I'm not sure about like the physiology and how it bears out in the brain. I know women have like more oxytocin in their mind that like, that's released into their brain, which like is activated when you nurture and you love and you're stressed and have feelings. Like they just have more of that. Yeah.
If we could just come back to the beer can on stick rock throwing game.
Hours.
Because I think that kind of goes along with this. So you assert that masculinity so fragile, masculinity so simple. You know, just beer can, stick, throwing rock, and that's all that there is to it.
I think that's a good starter for understanding.
Like as a metaphor that
It's just like, here's the thing. There are two sides of that dynamic.
Okay.
One of which is just so terrible. And the other one is like, and I think it's more for a teaching aspect toward men, really, to say, like, if you're gonna do like that masculine, let's measure thing, don't do it to belittle women. Just go throw rocks at a beer can.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, so I think the issue that I'm seeing is that a lot of men took it as like an individual attack. They're like, but I just like throwing rocks at a beer can. Like, what's wrong with that?
That's what kind of man I am. You're just a woman with a small brain.
As opposed to a conversation about a larger social issue.
Right.
You know, there was one of my favorite tweets that I saw was when guys hug each other and they feel the need to say, no homo.
I
That's
was
like
just gonna read
hugging
that.
your mom
Yes.
and saying no Oedipus.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Yeah.
and I think that we should look at this as like a funny hashtag that caught on, that is a great way for men to be like, you know what, I like throwing rocks at beer cans, but also I feel like, and like that's okay.
And also, I love to hug my male
And I
friends.
love to hug my male
Yes.
friends.
Okay, really quickly, because I think one really important part about this hashtag that got very little attention, but I think that we can hopefully underscore the importance on it, is here is a tweet right here. So far this year, a reported 18 black trans women have been murdered in America. Hashtag masculinity so fragile. Hashtag masculinity so fragile that men are killing trans women they find attractive because they fear their heterosexuality has been threatened. So that's really important to think about too, because when you look at toxic masculinity, you look at how it is affecting the behavior in so many different aspects and how it is costing people's lives. And then it also brought up the fact that it's costing men their life because they have a shorter lifespan. One of the theories why they have a shorter lifespan than women is because they're not talking about their feelings. They're not going to the doctors on time. They're producing a lot of extra stress. And that is one contributor to why they are not having as long as a lifespan. That was a theory.
They're not going to
presented by
doctors
it.
because they're like, I can handle it.
That was the
Got it.
theory. So
No, I
think
get
it's
that.
important to talk
I get
about
that, but what my natural response is just like, okay, that sounds like an invective against like all of masculinity. I think to clarify it, it's just this brand of masculinity. Like, it just make it more as specific as possible to be like, listen, whatever's happening, whatever seeing a trans person makes you feel, don't take it out on that person.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it's a personal issue, like, I get what you mean. A certain brand of masculinity is toxic.
Right.
I think calling it toxic masculinity just isn't the clearest way it can be said. Just because it kind of makes it sound like all of masculinity is toxic.
Right.
And that's not the point of
Right,
it. The
right.
point of it is, for anyone who's having trouble, because I was just like trying to figure it out, it is a certain brand of masculinity that doesn't allow guys to just kind of do what I think healthy masculinity is, which is just to say, listen, let's not overreact here. Let's step up and do the right thing. Let's do the honorable thing.
I
and
love
not
the
be a
hashtag
dick.
healthy masculinity because then there
Yeah.
could be so many positive stories about what healthy masculinity is.
Put down the
Hashtag-
pitchforks
Yeah.
and pick up like a sword.
And
of
pick up the
justice.
stick and the beer can.
You guys, please share your thoughts in the comment section below about toxic masculinity, hashtag healthy masculinity, and then, of course, the actual hashtag that we were talking about, refreshing my memory with all these different
Masculinity
hashtags.
so fragile.
Masculinity so fragile. We want to hear what you guys have to say. See you next time on Pop Trigger.